The Garnet Garden estate loomed under a 1920s dusk, its ivy-clad walls whispering secrets. Inside, candlelight danced over a lavish dinner, where Lady Beatrice Langley, radiant in emerald silk, raised her claret. "To prosperity!" she toasted, her voice a melody. Moments later she collapsed, lips stained crimson, wineglass shattering. Guests gasped. Hercule Poirot, a chance visitor, noted the almond-like scent. Poison? His grey eyes scanned the glittering assembly, each a suspect. Truth, he vowed, would not escape him. A servant's scream pierced the silence. Another glass was missing, its absence a chilling enigma. Chapter 1. The Crimson Stain. The Garnet Garden estate stood resolute against the encroaching dusk of a 1920s autumn evening, its ivy-clad turrets piercing the sombre English sky. The air, heavy with the scent of damp earth and fading roses, carried a chill that seemed to whisper secrets through the mullioned windows. Within the grand dining hall, chandeliers cast a golden glow over a tableau of opulence. Crystal goblets sparkled, silverware gleamed, and the long mahogany table groaned under the weight of a feast prepared for the elite of the countryside. At the head sat Lady Beatrice Langley, her emerald silk gown shimmering, her auburn hair swept into an elegant chignon. Her presence commanded the room, her laughter a melody that danced above the clink of glasses and the murmur of conversation. Tonight, the Garnet Garden was alive with celebration. A toast to prosperity, she had declared, her voice bright with promise. Yet, beneath the surface, an undercurrent of unease rippled through the gathered guests as though the very walls held their breath. Hercule Poirot, the diminutive Belgian detective with his impeccably waxed moustache and piercing grey eyes, was an unexpected guest. Invited by a mutual acquaintance, he had accepted out of curiosity. Intrigued by the reputation of Lady Beatrice, a woman whose charm was matched only by her enigmatic influence. He sat near the foot of the table, observing the assembly with the precision of a watchmaker. To his left, Sir Reginald Langley, Beatrice's husband, fidgeted with his cufflinks, his broad shoulders tense beneath a tailored dinner jacket. His wealth, Poirot knew, was tethered to his wife's estate, a fact that did not escape the detective's notice. Beside him, Clara Henshaw, the young maid, moved with quiet efficiency, her dark eyes darting nervously as she poured wine from a crystal decanter. Dr. Victor Crane, the family physician, sat opposite, his gaunt face betraying a restless energy as he sipped his claret. Evelyn Marsh, Beatrice's niece, clutched a silver locket, her delicate features masking a calculating gaze. At the far end, Lord Percival Grey, a business magnate with a hawkish nose, watched the proceedings with a faint, inscrutable smirk. The evening proceeded with the elegance expected of such gatherings. Footmen glided silently, serving plates of roasted, pheasant and glazed vegetables, while a string quartet played softly in the corner. Beatrice, radiant as ever, rose to her feet, her glass raised high. "To prosperity," she declared, her voice ringing clear. "To the Garnet Garden, and to all who share its bounty." The guests echoed her toast, their glasses catching the candlelight like scattered stars. Poirot, ever observant, noted the brief hesitation in Sir Reginald's raise, the flicker of Clara's hand as she stepped back, the way Dr. Crane's eyes lingered on Beatrice. Then, in a moment that seemed to stretch into eternity, Beatrice's smile faltered. Her hand trembled, the glass slipped, and she collapsed onto the table, her emerald gown crumpling like fallen leaves. A gasp tore through the room, followed by a shattering crash as her wineglass hit the floor, its contents spilling in a garnet pool across the polished wood. Chaos erupted. Evelyn screamed, clutching her locket as if it were a talisman. Sir Reginald leapt to his wife's side, his face ashen, calling her name in a voice thick with panic. Dr. Crane, with a physician's instinct, knelt beside her, his fingers searching for a pulse. "She's gone," he whispered, his voice hollow. The guests stood frozen, their faces a gallery of shock and suspicion. Poirot, unmoved by the hysteria, stepped forward, his small frame commanding attention. He knelt beside the body, his eyes scanning the scene with clinical precision. The spilled wine carried a faint, almond-like scent, subtle but unmistakable to a man of his experience. Cyanide, perhaps? Or something more exotic? He examined the shards of the broken glass, noting a powdery residue clinging to the rim, invisible to the untrained eye. His gaze swept the room, cataloguing every detail. The overturned chair, the untouched plates, the decanter still half full on the sideboard. "Mes amis," Poirot said, his voice calm yet resonant, "this is no accident. Lady Beatrice has been poisoned." A murmur rippled through the guests, a mix of disbelief and dread. He straightened, his moustache twitching slightly, as his mind began to weave the threads of the mystery. Who among this glittering assembly harboured the malice to commit such an act? Was it Sir Reginald, whose financial ruin loomed without his wife's fortune? Clara, whose nervous demeanour suggested hidden knowledge? Dr. Crane, whose medical expertise could mask a sinister intent? Evelyn, whose inheritance might now be within reach? Or Lord Grey, whose rivalry with Beatrice's late father was the stuff of local legend? Each face, Poirot knew, concealed a story, and he would unravel them all. He turned to the decanter, its crystal facets glinting under the chandelier. "Who poured the wine?" he asked, his tone deceptively mild. Clara flinched, her hands twisting in her apron. "I did, sir," she stammered, "but I swear it was from the same bottle as the others." Poirot's eyes narrowed. The same bottle, perhaps, but not the same glass. He noted the absence of a second glass near Beatrice's place-setting, an oddity in such a meticulously arranged table. Had it been removed? And if so, by whom? His thoughts were interrupted by a piercing scream from the far end of the hall. A young footman stood trembling, pointing to the floor beneath a curtained alcove. "Another glass!" he cried. "It's gone!" Poirot crossed the room in swift, deliberate strides, his polished shoes clicking on the parquet. The guests parted, their whispers a chorus of unease. Beneath the alcove, where shadows pooled like ink, he found nothing, no glass, no trace of wine. Yet the footman's panic was genuine, and Poirot's instincts hummed. A missing glass, a poisoned lady, a room full of suspects. Here was a puzzle worthy of Hercule Poirot. He turned to the assembled guests, his voice cutting through the tension like a blade. "No one shall leave this estate," he declared. "The truth, it hides among you, and I, Poirot, shall find it." The dining hall seemed to close in, the candlelight flickering as if in protest. Outside, the wind howled, rattling the windows as though the Garnet Garden itself mourned its mistress. Poirot's gaze lingered on the spilled wine, its crimson stain spreading like blood across the floor. The almond scent lingered, a ghostly reminder of the crime. He knew the path to truth would be winding, fraught with deception and half-truths. Yet his little grey cells were already at work, piecing together the fragments of this deadly tableau. Somewhere in this room, in the glances exchanged and the secrets unspoken, lay the key to the mystery. And Poirot, with his unerring logic, would not rest until it was found. The guests stood in uneasy silence, their faces illuminated by the flickering light. Sir Reginald's hands trembled as he clutched Beatrice's shawl, his grief tinged with something Poirot could not yet name. Clara's eyes darted to the door, as if longing to flee. Dr. Crane's composure was a mask, his fingers twitching at his side. Evelyn's locket gleamed, a silent witness to her thoughts. Lord Grey's smirk had vanished, replaced by a guarded expression. Poirot felt the weight of their secrets, each a thread in the tapestry of murder. He would tug at them, one by one, until the pattern emerged. As the clock struck 9, its chimes echoing like a funeral knell, Poirot stepped back, his mind alight with possibilities. The poison, the glass, the missing evidence. It was a symphony of clues, and he was its conductor. He glanced at the garden beyond the windows, its shadows thick with secrets. Had the poison come from within the estate, perhaps from the very flora that gave it its name? Or was it brought by an outsider, concealed in a pocket or a vial? The answer, he knew, lay in the details, the overlooked, the insignificant, the human. "Mesdames et messieurs," he said softly, his voice a velvet blade, "the game, it has begun." And with that, the little Belgian detective set his sights on the truth, undeterred by the darkness that lay ahead. The Garnet Garden, with its beauty and its treachery, would yield its secrets to Hercule Poirot. Chapter 2. The Guests of Suspicion. The dining hall of Garnet Garden Estate, so recently alive with the clink of crystal and the warmth of candlelight, now bore the chill of a mausoleum. The air was thick with suspicion, each guest a statue frozen in the aftermath of Lady Beatrice Langley's collapse. Her body, draped in emerald silk, had been gently covered with a tablecloth by a trembling footman. But the crimson stain of spilled wine lingered on the polished mahogany, a silent accusation. Hercule Poirot stood at the centre of the room, his small frame an anchor amidst the storm of whispers and sidelong glances. His grey eyes, sharp as a falcon's, swept over the assembled company, cataloguing every twitch, every averted gaze. The second glass, shattered in the pantry, had been retrieved and placed under guard. No one would tamper with evidence under Poirot's watch. The faint almond-like scent of poison clung to the air, a ghostly reminder of the crime that had shattered the evening's elegance. "Mes amis," Poirot began, his voice a measured cadence that commanded silence. "A murder has been committed before our very eyes. Lady Beatrice, she is no more, and the hand that struck her sits among us." A gasp rippled through the room, though none dared protest. Poirot's moustache twitched, a subtle sign of his mind's ceaseless motion. "We shall remain here, all of us, until the truth is laid bare. Now, I ask you to compose yourselves, and we shall begin." He turned first to Sir Reginald Langley, whose broad shoulders slumped under the weight of grief, or perhaps guilt. The baronet's face was pale, his eyes red-rimmed as he clutched a handkerchief embroidered with Beatrice's initials. "Monsieur Langley," Poirot said, his tone deceptively gentle, "you were closest to your wife. Tell me, what did you observe before her fall?" Reginald's hands shook, his cufflinks glinting in the candlelight. "Nothing unusual," he stammered. "She was radiant, happy. We toasted, and then she was gone." His voice broke, but Poirot noted the way his eyes darted to the decanter, as if seeking reassurance or concealment. Reginald's wealth, it was whispered, depended on Beatrice's estate, a fortune amassed through her late father's investments. Had desperation driven him to murder? Poirot's gaze shifted to Clara Henshaw, the maid who stood near the sideboard, her hands twisting in her apron. Her dark hair was pinned tightly, but a stray lock betrayed her agitation. "Mademoiselle Henshaw," Poirot said, stepping closer. "You poured the wine, n'est-ce pas?" Clara nodded, her eyes wide with fear. "Yes, sir, from the decanter, same as for everyone." Her voice trembled, and Poirot noted her knowledge of the wine's path, an unusual precision for a servant. "And did you see anyone near the decanter before the toast?" he pressed. Clara hesitated, her glance flickering toward Evelyn Marsh. I thought I saw Miss Evelyn there, sir, but I can't be sure." Her words hung in the air, a spark in the tinder of suspicion. Evelyn Marsh, Beatrice's niece, sat with the poise of a porcelain doll, her delicate fingers clutching a silver locket. Her blonde curls framed a face that seemed too serene for the occasion, her blue eyes calculating beneath long lashes. "Mademoiselle Marsh," Poirot said, his tone sharpening, "you were seen near the decanter. What say you?" Evelyn's lips parted in a faint smile, unruffled. "I was admiring the crystal, Monsieur Poirot. It's Venetian, quite rare. I touched nothing." Her voice was smooth, but Poirot detected a note of defiance. As Beatrice's closest kin, Evelyn stood to inherit a significant portion of the estate, unless the will had been altered, as a guest had whispered earlier. Was her calm a mask for greed? Dr. Victor Crane, the family physician, cleared his throat, drawing Poirot's attention. His gaunt face was slick with perspiration, despite the cool evening. "Monsieur le Docteur," Poirot said, "you examined Lady Beatrice. What is your opinion?" Crane adjusted his spectacles, his voice clipped. "A heart attack, likely. She had a weak constitution, as I warned her repeatedly." Poirot's eyes narrowed. The almond scent suggested poison, not a natural death. Crane's expertise in medicine, and perhaps toxicology, made his dismissal suspicious. "And yet," Poirot mused, "the glass bears traces of a substance. You saw nothing amiss." Crane's jaw tightened. "Nothing," he said too quickly. Lord Percival Grey, the final suspect, lounged at the table's end, his hawkish features softened by a smirk. A business rival of Beatrice's late father, he had clashed with her over trade routes and investments. "Lord Grey," Poirot said, "you seem unperturbed by this tragedy." Grey's eyes gleamed. "I've seen worse, Monsieur Poirot. Beatrice was a formidable woman, but enemies come with power." His candour was disarming, yet Poirot sensed a calculated edge. Had Grey's old grudges festered into murder? Poirot paced slowly, his polished shoes clicking on the parquet. The dining hall, with its high ceilings and velvet drapes, felt oppressive now, the shadows deepening as the candles burned low. He approached the shattered glass from the pantry, now resting on a silver tray. Its rim, like Beatrice's, bore a faint powdery residue. "This glass," Poirot said, holding it aloft, "was it meant for another? Or was it a mistake, discarded in haste?" The guests exchanged uneasy glances. Poirot's mind churned. The poison required precision, a knowledge of dosage and opportunity. Clara had poured the wine, but anyone could have tampered with the glass. The decanter, still half full, beckoned from the sideboard. He examined it closely, noting a faint smudge on its neck, a fingerprint perhaps, or a careless brush of a glove. The servants hovering at the room's edges were questioned next. A footman, young and nervous, admitted to clearing the table, but swore he touched no glasses. The butler, a stoic figure named Hawkins, confirmed the wine was a rare vintage, opened that evening. No one approached the decanter after it was brought in, he said, but his eyes flickered toward Clara. Poirot filed this away, his little grey cells humming. The almond scent, the missing glass, the residue, all pointed to a deliberate act, planned with care. But why only Beatrice? And why the second glass, hidden in the pantry? Poirot turned to the guests, his voice soft but commanding. Each of you has a story, a reason to wish Lady Beatrice harm, or to fear her. Monsieur Langley, your fortune rests on her name. Mademoiselle Henshaw, your nerves betray you. Dr. Crane, your expertise is too convenient. Mademoiselle Marsh, your inheritance looms large. And Lord Grey, your rivalry is no secret. He paused, letting the words settle like dust. The truth, it is here, in this room. And I, Hercule Poirot, shall uncover it. A murmur broke the silence, cut short by a sharp cry from Hawkins. The butler stood by the sideboard, his face pale. "Sir," he stammered, holding up a folded piece of paper, "this was in Lady Beatrice's hand when we moved her." Poirot took the note, his gloved fingers careful. The paper was torn, its edges jagged, but the words were clear: "Meet me at midnight. Trust no one." Unsigned, it carried the weight of a final warning. Poirot's eyes gleamed. A rendezvous, perhaps, or a lure to her doom. He studied the guests anew. Reginald's grief seemed genuine, yet his financial straits were undeniable. Clara's knowledge of the wine suggested opportunity, if not intent. Crane's medical bag, left carelessly open, contained syringes, tools of healing or harm. Evelyn's locket, clutched tightly, hinted at a personal connection to Beatrice. Grey's smirk had faded, replaced by a wary stillness. The note, Poirot knew, was a pivot point, a clue that could unravel the tapestry of deceit. Outside, the wind howled, rattling the windows of Garnet Garden. The estate's namesake garden, lush with rare blooms, lay beyond, its shadows thick with possibility. Had the poison come from those very beds, distilled from some deadly flower? Poirot's mind raced, piecing together the fragments, the wine, the glass, the note, the scent. The crime was a puzzle, its pieces scattered among the suspects. He would need to probe deeper, to peel back the layers of their secrets. As the clock struck 10, its chimes a solemn reminder of time's passage, Poirot addressed the room. "We shall reconvene tomorrow," he said. "Until then, no one leaves this estate. The Garnet Garden holds its secrets, but not from Hercule Poirot." The guests dispersed, their footsteps heavy with dread. Poirot lingered, his gaze fixed on the crimson stain, now drying into the wood. The note in his hand felt like a challenge, a whisper from the grave. He would answer it. Chapter 3. Shadows of Secrets. The Garnet Garden estate slumbered uneasily under a 1920s dawn, its stone walls cloaked in mist that curled like spectres around the turrets. The air was sharp with the scent of wet grass and fading jasmine, a reminder of the garden's enigmatic allure. Inside, the dining hall, scene of Lady Beatrice Langley's tragic end, stood silent, its chandeliers dimmed, the crimson stain of spilled wine, now a dark scar on the mahogany. Hercule Poirot, ever meticulous, stood by the sideboard, his gloved fingers tracing the edge of the crystal decanter that had held the fatal claret. The torn note, found in Beatrice's hand, "Meet me at midnight, trust no one," lay folded in his pocket, its cryptic words a beacon in the fog of suspicion. The second glass, shattered in the pantry, and the scrap of fabric caught in the garden thorns had deepened the mystery. Each clue, a thread in the intricate tapestry Poirot was determined to unravel. The detective's grey cells buzzed with activity as he surveyed the room, its opulence now a hollow echo of last night's revelry. The guests, summoned once more, filed in with reluctant steps, their faces etched with fatigue and fear. Sir Reginald Langley, his eyes hollow, clutched a tumbler of brandy, his grief or guilt palpable. Clara Henshaw, the maid, hovered near the door, her hands twisting in her apron, her gaze flitting nervously. Dr. Victor Crane, the physician, adjusted his spectacles, his gaunt features taut with unease. Evelyn Marsh, Beatrice's niece, sat with unnatural calm, her silver locket gleaming against her navy dress. Lord Percival Grey, the business rival, leaned against a chair, his hawkish eyes watching Poirot with guarded interest. Each, Poirot knew, held a piece of the puzzle, and he would coax it from them with the precision of a surgeon. "Monsieur Poirot," Reginald began, his voice hoarse, "have you found anything new? My wife, she deserves justice." Poirot's moustache twitched, noting the baronet's trembling hands. "Justice, Monsieur Langley, requires truth," he replied, "and the truth, it hides in the shadows of this very room." He produced the torn note, holding it aloft. "This was found in Madame Langley's hand. A rendezvous, perhaps, or a warning. Who among you knows of this midnight meeting?" The guests exchanged uneasy glances, but none spoke. Poirot's eyes narrowed, his mind cataloguing their silence. Silence, he knew, was often louder than words. He turned to Clara, whose pale face betrayed her nerves. "Mademoiselle Henshaw, you were quick to point to Mademoiselle Marsh last night, suggesting she was near the decanter. Why such suspicion?" Clara's eyes widened, her voice barely a whisper. "I only said what I saw, sir. Miss Evelyn was there, adjusting her shawl near the sideboard before the toast." Poirot noted the specificity of her observation, an unusual detail for a fleeting glance. "And you, mademoiselle," he continued, "you know much of the household's workings. Tell me, do you know of Madame Langley's habits? Her secrets, perhaps?" Clara flushed, her hands tightening. I only served her, sir. She was kind but private." Poirot's gaze lingered, sensing a half-truth. Clara's knowledge of the wine's path, her nervous demeanour, could she be hiding more than fear? Evelyn, sensing the scrutiny, straightened, her voice cool. "Monsieur Poirot, Clara is mistaken. I was nowhere near the decanter. I was speaking with Lord Grey about the estate's rose gardens." Grey nodded, his smirk faint. "Indeed, we discussed horticulture. Miss Marsh has an eye for beauty." Poirot's eyes flickered between them. An alibi, conveniently shared, but was it rehearsed? Evelyn's locket caught the light, drawing his attention. "That locket, Mademoiselle Marsh," he said. "It is significant to you, no?" Evelyn's fingers tightened around it. "A gift from my aunt," she said softly. "It holds her photograph." Poirot filed this away. A sentimental token, or something more? Dr. Crane cleared his throat, his voice clipped. "Monsieur Poirot, this focus on trifles is unnecessary. Beatrice's heart was weak. I warned her often. The excitement of the evening, the wine, it was too much." Poirot's smile was thin. "A heart attack, Monsieur le Docteur. Yet the glass bears a powdery residue, and the air carried the scent of almonds. You, with your medical knowledge, would recognize cyanide, would you not?" Crane's face paled, his spectacles slipping slightly. I noticed no such scent," he stammered. Poirot's gaze sharpened. A lie, poorly concealed. Crane's expertise made him a candidate for crafting the poison, but his denial suggested fear, or calculation. Lord Grey, ever the opportunist, interjected. "If it's poison you suspect, Poirot, look to the servants. They handle the food, the drink. Clara was pouring, wasn't she?" Clara gasped, her eyes brimming. "I'd never harm her ladyship," she cried. Poirot raised a hand, silencing the room. "Accusations without evidence, Lord Grey, are but shadows. Let us cast light instead." He stepped toward the window, where the garden lay bathed in morning mist. The scrap of fabric found on a thorn nagged at his mind. It was silk, dyed a deep blue, not unlike Clara's shawl, but too fine for a maid's wardrobe. Had someone else ventured into the garden last night? Poirot excused himself, requesting the guests remain under Hawkins's watch. He descended to the garden, its paths winding through beds of roses, foxglove, and rare orchids. The Garnet Garden was renowned for its botanical treasures, curated by Beatrice herself. Poirot knelt by the thorn bush where the fabric had been found, his gloved fingers brushing the soil. A crushed petal caught his eye. Foxglove, its vibrant purple a stark contrast to the earth. Foxglove, he knew, was deadly when distilled, its poison mimicking a heart attack. Had the garden itself provided the weapon? He scanned the area, noting footprints in the damp soil, small, deliberate, as if someone had moved with care. A nocturnal visitor, perhaps, harvesting death under moonlight. Returning to the house, Poirot summoned Clara for a private word in the library. The room, lined with leather-bound volumes, smelled of wax and old paper. Clara stood rigid, her hands clasped. "Mademoiselle," Poirot said softly, "you know more than you say. The garden, the herbs, you have knowledge of such things, no?" Clara's eyes widened. I studied a bit, sir, in my village, herbs for healing, nothing more." Poirot leaned closer, his voice a velvet blade. "And foxglove, it is not for healing, but for death." Clara flinched, tears spilling. "I never touched it, sir. I swear." Her fear was genuine, but Poirot sensed a secret buried beneath it. He let her go, her sobs echoing as she fled. Next, he confronted Reginald in the drawing-room. The baronet's brandy glass was empty, his hands unsteady. "Monsieur Langley," Poirot said, "your wife's fortune was your lifeline, was it not? Rumours speak of debts, of ruin." Reginald's face crumpled. "It's true," he admitted, his voice breaking. "Without Beatrice, I'm finished. But I loved her, Poirot. I'd never harm her." His grief seemed real, yet Poirot noted his quick glance at the door, as if expecting rescue or exposure. A will, altered recently, had been whispered about. Had Reginald acted to secure his future? Poirot's inquiries continued with Dr. Crane, whose medical bag lay open on a table. Among the vials and syringes, Poirot spotted a notebook with hurried scrawls, notes on dosages, including foxglove extract. "Monsieur le Docteur," Poirot said, "your interest in poisons is curious." Crane's face tightened. "Research, nothing more. I treated Beatrice, not killed her." His denial was firm, but Poirot's instincts hummed. Crane's knowledge was a double-edged sword, life-saving or lethal. Evelyn, questioned last, remained composed. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, "I loved my aunt. Her death benefits me, yes, but I'd rather have her alive." Her sincerity was convincing, yet the locket's weight in her hand suggested a deeper story. Lord Grey, when pressed, admitted to a business feud, but denied violence. "Beatrice was a rival, not an enemy," he said, his eyes cold. Poirot nodded, unconvinced. As noon approached, Poirot stood alone in the dining hall, the decanter gleaming under a shaft of sunlight. The note, the fabric, the petal, each clue pointed to the garden, to knowledge, to motive. Clara's herbal expertise, Reginald's debts, Crane's lies, Evelyn's inheritance, Grey's rivalry, all swirled in his mind. The poison was no accident, but a masterpiece of deception. He stepped outside, the garden's shadows lengthening. A faint scent of foxglove lingered, a whisper of death. Chapter 4. The Poison's Whisper. The Garnet Garden estate, bathed in the pale light of a 1920s afternoon, seemed to hold its breath, its sprawling gardens and ivy-clad walls cloaking secrets as dark as the soil beneath. Hercule Poirot stood by a flower-bed, his gloved fingers cradling the vial he had unearthed moments ago. Its contents, a clear liquid with a faint opalescent sheen, shimmered ominously. The crushed foxglove petal nearby confirmed his suspicions. This was no mere accident, but a calculated act of murder. Lady Beatrice Langley's death, marked by the crimson stain of poisoned wine, had drawn a web of suspicion around the guests, and this vial was a new thread in the tapestry of deceit. Poirot's grey cells hummed, piecing together the clues. The torn note, the scrap of fabric, the almond-like scent, and now this vial, hidden in the garden's heart. The truth, he knew, was close, yet veiled by layers of deception. He returned to the dining hall, where the air still carried the weight of last night's tragedy. The guests, summoned once more, sat in uneasy silence, their faces a gallery of guarded expressions. Sir Reginald Langley, his hands trembling around a fresh glass of brandy, looked haggard, his grief tinged with desperation. Clara Henshaw, the maid, stood by the sideboard, her eyes red from crying, her apron twisted into knots. Dr. Victor Crane, the physician, adjusted his spectacles, his gaunt face slick with perspiration despite the cool room. Evelyn Marsh, Beatrice's niece, clutched her silver locket, her serene demeanour cracking under Poirot's scrutiny. Lord Percival Grey, the business rival, leaned back in his chair, his hawkish eyes glinting with a mix of amusement and wariness. Poirot held the vial aloft, its presence a silent accusation. "Mes amis," he said, his voice a velvet blade, "this vial found in the garden speaks of poison. Who among you knows its story?" A murmur rippled through the room, but no one spoke. Poirot's gaze swept over them, noting every reaction. Reginald's glass clinked as his hand shook. Clara's breath hitched, Crane's jaw tightened, Evelyn's fingers tightened around her locket. Grey's smirk faltered. The detective's moustache twitched, a sign of his mind's relentless motion. "The liquid," he continued, "is likely foxglove extract, distilled with care. It matches the residue in Madame Langley's glass. This is no accident, but a design most sinister." He placed the vial on the table, its glint drawing every eye. "Let us reconstruct the evening, non? The wine, the toast, the death? Who had the means, the motive, the opportunity?" Poirot turned to Clara first, her nervous demeanour a beacon in the room. "Mademoiselle Henshaw, you poured the wine from the decanter. Did you handle the glasses?" Clara's eyes widened, her voice trembling. "I set them out, sir, but I didn't touch them after, I swear it." Poirot noted her fear, but also her precision. She knew the wine's path, a detail that suggested more than a maid's usual duties. "And you know of foxglove, do you not?" he pressed. "You spoke of herbs, of healing." Clara's face paled. I know of it, sir, but I never used it. It's dangerous, I know that much." Her tears welled, but Poirot's gaze was unrelenting. Was her fear genuine, or a performance to mask guilt? Next he addressed Evelyn, whose calm facade seemed to waver under his scrutiny. "Mademoiselle Marsh, you stand to inherit much from your aunt's death. The will, it is said, was recently changed. What do you know of this?" Evelyn's lips parted, her voice steady but strained. "I knew nothing of the will, Monsieur Poirot. Aunt Beatrice never spoke of it to me. I loved her, not her money." Her fingers brushed the locket, a gesture Poirot noted. "And yet," he said, "you were seen near the decanter. A coincidence, perhaps?" Evelyn's eyes flashed. "I told you, I admired the crystal. I accuse no one, but Lord Grey was also near the sideboard, discussing business." Poirot's eyes flickered to Gray, who raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Lord Gray, ever the provocateur, leaned forward. Monsieur Poirot, if you're fishing for culprits, look to the household. Clara's hands were on the wine, and Dr. Crane's bag is full of potions. His tone was light, but his eyes were cold. Poirot's smile was thin. Lord Gray, your rivalry with Madame Langley's family is well known. A business deal soured, no? Did it sour your heart as well? Gray chuckled, unperturbed. Beatrice was a thorn, but I don't kill over contracts. Poison's too subtle for my taste. His candour was disarming, but Poirot sensed a calculated deflection. Dr. Crane, visibly agitated, interjected. This is absurd, Poirot. I examined Beatrice. She had a weak heart. The excitement of the evening overwhelmed her. There's no need for this poison nonsense. Poirot's gaze sharpened. And yet, Monsieur le Docteur, the almond scent, the residue, the vial, they contradict your diagnosis. Your medical bag, it contains syringes, does it not? And notes on foxglove. Crane's face flushed. For research, nothing more. I'd never harm a patient. Poirot noted the sweat on his brow, the tremor in his voice. A lie, perhaps? Or merely fear of exposure? Sir Reginald, silent until now, spoke up, his voice raw. Poirot, if it's poison, it wasn't me. Beatrice was my life. Without her, I'm ruined, yes, but I'd never— His words trailed off, his eyes darting to the decanter. Poirot leaned closer. Monsieur Langley, your debts are no secret. Did you know of the will's change? Did it drive you to desperation? Reginald's face crumpled. I knew she was revising it, but I didn't see it. I loved her, Poirot. You must believe me. His grief seemed genuine, but Poirot's instincts hummed. Grief could mask guilt. Poirot paced slowly, his polished shoes clicking on the parquet. The dining hall's grandeur felt oppressive, its velvet drapes and gilded mirrors reflecting the tension. He returned to the decanter, examining its neck. The smudge he had noted last night, a fingerprint perhaps, was faint but present. He would need to compare it, but for now it was another piece of the puzzle. The vial, he suspected, was the key. Foxglove extract required knowledge and precision, pointing to someone with both access and expertise. Clara's herbal studies, Crane's medical background, even Evelyn's familiarity with the garden, all were possibilities. But why only Beatrice's glass? And what of the second glass, shattered in the pantry? He summoned Hawkins, the butler, who stood rigid by the door. Monsieur Hawkins, the wine was opened that evening, oui? Who handled the decanter before Mademoiselle Henshaw? Hawkins frowned, his memory strained. It was brought from the cellar, sir, and placed on the sideboard. I saw no one touch it, but— He hesitated, glancing at Clara. Miss Henshaw was arranging the glasses nearby. Clara gasped, her tears spilling. I didn't do anything, sir. Poirot raised a hand, silencing her. Patience, mademoiselle. The truth, it reveals itself in time. Poirot's mind churned, reconstructing the evening. The toast proposed by Reginald had been the moment of death. Clara poured the wine. Crane had inspected Beatrice's health earlier that day. Evelyn and Gray lingered near the sideboard, and the decanter stood unguarded for moments. The poison, he reasoned, was added to the glass, not the decanter. Only Beatrice had fallen. The second glass, found in the pantry, suggested a mistake or a diversion. Had the killer intended another victim, or was it a clumsy attempt to dispose of evidence? He turned to the garden, visible through the tall windows. Its lush beds, filled with foxglove and other deadly blooms, were Beatrice's pride. Had she unwittingly cultivated her own demise? Poirot recalled a guest's whisper. Beatrice had argued with Clara days before, a heated exchange overheard in the greenhouse. "Mademoiselle Henshaw," he said, his voice soft but probing, "what was your quarrel with Madame Langlais?" Clara's eyes widened, her voice barely audible. "It was nothing, sir. She was upset about a broken pot in the greenhouse. I apologized." Poirot's moustache twitched. A broken pot? Or something more personal? Evelyn, sensing the shift, spoke up. "Monsieur Poirot, if you're looking for motives, ask Dr. Crane. He was furious when Aunt Beatrice refused his new treatment." Crane's face reddened. "Nonsense! I only wanted her well." Poirot noted the exchange, his mind weaving connections. Crane's expertise, Clara's herbs, Reginald's debts, Evelyn's inheritance, Gray's rivalry, each thread tightened the web. The vial, he knew, was no accident. Someone had harvested the foxglove, distilled its poison, and placed it with care. As the afternoon waned, Poirot dismissed the guests, instructing Hawkins to keep watch. He returned to the garden, the vial secure in his pocket. The flower beds, meticulously tended, held secrets beyond the foxglove. He knelt by the thorn bush where the fabric scrap had been found, noting its proximity to the greenhouse. A faint path, barely visible, led to its glass doors. Had someone slipped out during the dinner under cover of darkness? The greenhouse, he decided, was the next step. Chapter 5. The Greenhouse Enigma, the Garnet Garden estate, nestled in the misty embrace of a 1920s English afternoon, seemed to pulse with secrets, its sprawling gardens a labyrinth of beauty and danger. Hercule Poirot stood at the threshold of the greenhouse, its glass panes fogged with condensation, reflecting the pale light like a fractured mirror. The gardener's revelation that Clara Henshaw had been seen tending plants after midnight hung in the air like the faint scent of foxglove that lingered in the soil. The vial of clear liquid, unearthed from the garden, rested in Poirot's pocket, its contents a silent testament to the murder of Lady Beatrice Langley. The crimson stain of her poisoned wine, the torn note, the scrap of fabric, and now Clara's nocturnal activities wove a complex tapestry of suspicion. Poirot's little grey cells thrummed, each clue a note in a symphony of deduction he was determined to conduct. The greenhouse door creaked as he entered, the humid air heavy with the perfume of exotic blooms. Rows of plants, orchids, roses, and the deadly foxglove, stood in meticulous order, their vibrant colours belying their potential for harm. Poirot's polished shoes clicked on the stone floor as he examined the foxglove, its bell-shaped flowers drooping under their own weight. The leaves, he knew, could be distilled into a poison that mimicked a heart attack, a fact that pointed to someone with botanical knowledge. Clara's admission of studying herbs, coupled with her late-night presence, made her a focal point, yet Poirot sensed the truth was not so simple. The greenhouse, Beatrice's sanctuary, held answers, and he would unearth them. Returning to the manor, Poirot summoned the suspects to the library, its leather-bound volumes and polished oak shelves a stark contrast to the garden's wild beauty. The guests filed in, their faces etched with tension. Sir Reginald Langley, his eyes bloodshot, clutched a cigarette, its smoke curling like a spectre. Clara Henshaw, her apron discarded, stood with her arms crossed, her dark eyes darting nervously. Dr. Victor, Crane, his spectacles glinting, fidgeted with his medical bag, his composure fraying. Evelyn Marsh, clutching her silver locket, maintained her serene facade, though her fingers betrayed a slight tremor. Lord Percival Grey, his hawkish features sharp, leaned against a bookshelf, his smirk barely concealed. Poirot held the vial aloft, its contents catching the light. "Mes amis," he said, his voice a measured cadence, "this vial found in the garden contains foxglove extract. It is the weapon that felled Madame Langley. Who among you visited the greenhouse last night?" Clara gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "Not me, sir, I swear." Her voice trembled, but Poirot's gaze was unrelenting. "Mademoiselle Henshaw, a gardener saw you there after midnight. What were you tending in the dark?" Clara's eyes filled with tears. I was checking the roses, sir. Her ladyship loved them. I couldn't sleep after the dinner, so I went to the greenhouse. But I didn't touch the foxglove." Her words spilled out, a mix of fear and defiance. Poirot noted her knowledge of the plants, her access to the greenhouse, and her emotional state. Was she a pawn, or the architect of the crime? He turned to the gardener, a wiry man named Thomas who stood by the door. "Monsieur Thomas, describe what you saw." Thomas shifted, his cap twisting in his hands. "It was past midnight, sir. I was checking the sheds when I saw Miss Clara in the greenhouse, fussing with the plants. She seemed agitated, like she was looking for something." Poirot's moustache twitched. Agitated or purposeful? He dismissed Thomas, his mind cataloguing the gardener's testimony. Clara's presence in the greenhouse was no coincidence, but was she harvesting poison or merely tending roses? Poirot's inquiries shifted to Sir Reginald, whose cigarette had burned to ash. "Monsieur Langley, your wife's love for this garden is well known. Did you ever join her in the greenhouse?" Reginald's face darkened. "Rarely. Beatrice was the one with the green thumb. I stayed out of it." His voice cracked, but Poirot noted his quick glance at Clara. "And the will?" Poirot pressed. "You knew it was changed. Did it favour you?" Reginald's hands shook. "I didn't see it, Poirot. She mentioned revising it, but I thought it was to include Evelyn. I'm ruined without her, but I'd never—" His words trailed off, his grief convincing, yet shadowed by desperation. Dr. Crane, sensing scrutiny, spoke up. "Monsieur Poirot, this focus on the greenhouse is a distraction. Beatrice's heart was weak. I warned her repeatedly. The foxglove theory is speculative." Poirot's smile was thin. "Speculative, Monsieur le Docteur. The vial, the residue, the scent of almonds, they point to poison. Your medical bag, it contains syringes, oui? And notes on foxglove." Crane's face flushed. "For research, as I said. I'd never misuse my knowledge." Poirot's eyes narrowed. Crane's expertise made him a candidate, but his defensiveness suggested fear or guilt. Evelyn, her voice soft, interjected. "Monsieur Poirot, if Clara was in the greenhouse, perhaps she acted alone. Aunt Beatrice was upset with her recently, something about a broken pot." Clara's tears spilled over. "It was an accident, she forgave me." Poirot's gaze flickered between them. The broken pot, like the torn note, felt like a diversion. He turned to Lord Grey, whose smirk had returned. "Lord Grey, you spoke of the garden with Mademoiselle Marsh. Did you venture there?" Grey shrugged. "I prefer cigars to flowers, Poirot. I stayed in the dining hall." His alibi was convenient, but Poirot sensed a half-truth. Determined to probe deeper, Poirot requested Clara's quarters be searched. Hawkins, the butler, led him to a small room in the servants' wing, its sparse furnishings a stark contrast to the manor's opulence. Beneath Clara's bed, Poirot found a hidden journal, its pages filled with notes on herbs, foxglove among them. One entry, dated days before the dinner, read, "She knows she'll never forgive me." Poirot's heart quickened. Was she Beatrice? And what betrayal did the journal hint at? He confronted Clara in the library, holding the journal aloft. Mademoiselle, this speaks of a secret. What did Madame Langley know? Clara's face crumpled. It was personal, sir. I loved someone I shouldn't have. She found out, threatened to dismiss me. Her voice broke, her tears genuine, but Poirot sensed a deeper truth. Love, perhaps, turned to vengeance. Returning to the dining hall, Poirot examined the decanter again. The fingerprint smudge, barely visible, was joined by a faint residue inside, matching the vial's contents. The poison, he deduced, was added to Beatrice's glass, not the decanter. Only she had fallen. The second glass shattered in the pantry suggested a mistake or a cover-up. Had Clara, in her agitation, mishandled the poison? Or was she framed by another hand? Poirot summoned Reginald again, probing his financial straits. Monsieur Langley, a forged will has surfaced, naming you sole heir. Did you act to secure your future? Reginald's face paled. Forged? No, Poirot, I swear. I knew she was changing it, but I never saw it. His desperation was palpable, but Poirot noted the forgery's timing, post-mortem perhaps to muddy the waters. A red herring, or a desperate act? Dr. Crane's medical bag left in the library drew Poirot's attention. Among the syringes and vials, he found no match for the garden's liquid, but the notebook's foxglove entries were damning. Monsieur le Docteur, Poirot said, your research is curiously specific. Did you supply the poison? Crane's voice rose. I'm a healer, not a killer. Yet his trembling hands betrayed him. Evelyn, questioned last, remained composed. Monsieur Poirot, I had no quarrel with my aunt. The locket is a keepsake, nothing more. Her calm was unnerving, but Poirot noted her glance at Clara. Was there a connection, or merely suspicion? Lord Grey, when pressed, dismissed the greenhouse as irrelevant. I'm no gardener, Poirot. Look to those with dirty hands. His deflection was clever, but Poirot's instincts hummed. As evening fell, Poirot stood in the greenhouse, the foxglove's purple bells swaying in the humid air. Clara's journal, the vial, the gardener's testimony, all pointed to her, yet the web felt too neat. Someone, he suspected, had orchestrated this scene using Clara's knowledge and access. The torn note, "Trust no one," echoed in his mind. Had Beatrice known her killer? The garden's shadows deepened, mirroring the mystery's complexity. Chapter 6. Tangled Hearts. The Garnet Garden estate, shrouded in the gloaming of a 1920s evening, seemed to whisper its secrets through the rustling leaves and shadowed paths. The greenhouse, its glass panes aglow with the last rays of twilight, stood as a silent witness to the unfolding mystery of Lady Beatrice Langley's murder. Hercule Poirot, his polished shoes sinking slightly into the damp earth, held the locket he had found among Clara Henshaw's belongings. A twin to the one Evelyn Marsh wore, its silver surface etched with delicate filigree. Inside, a photograph of Beatrice, radiant and smiling, stared back at him, deepening the enigma. The vial of foxglove extract, the torn note, the scrap of fabric, and now this locket wove a web of intrigue around the suspects, each thread tightening Poirot's resolve to uncover the truth. His little grey cells thrummed, sensing a motive rooted not just in greed or revenge, but in the tangled bonds of the heart. Poirot returned to the manor, the locket secure in his pocket beside the vial. The library, with its leather-bound tomes and flickering lamplight, was the stage for his next inquiry. The suspects gathered, their faces a gallery of unease under the weight of his scrutiny. Sir Reginald Langley, his face haggard, smoked a cigarette, its acrid scent mingling with the room's musty air. Clara Henshaw, her eyes red-rimmed, stood by a window, her hands clasped as if in prayer. Dr. Victor Crane, his spectacles glinting, clutched his medical bag, his gaunt features taut with nerves. Evelyn Marsh, her silver locket gleaming against her dark dress, sat with unnatural calm, though her fingers betrayed a slight tremor. Lord Percival Grey, his hawkish eyes sharp, leaned against a bookshelf, his smirk replaced by a wary stillness. Poirot held the locket aloft, its twin to Evelyn's a silent accusation. "Mes amis," he said, his voice a velvet blade, "this locket, found in Mademoiselle Henshaw's quarters, matches that of Mademoiselle Marsh. It speaks of a connection, perhaps a secret. Who will explain?" Clara's gasp broke the silence, her hands flying to her mouth. "That's not mine, sir. I swear I've never seen it." Her voice trembled, her tears spilling anew. Poirot's gaze was unrelenting. "Mademoiselle Henshaw, your journal speaks of a forbidden love, a betrayal Madame Langley discovered. This locket, with her photograph, suggests intimacy. Speak the truth, I implore you." Clara's face crumpled, her voice barely audible. I loved her, sir. Not as a maid, but more. She was kind to me, but she ended it, said it was wrong. She threatened to dismiss me if I spoke of it. Her confession hung in the air, a raw wound laid bare. Poirot's moustache twitched, his mind cataloguing her words. Love, spurned, could breed vengeance, but Clara's tears seemed genuine. Was she a scorned lover or a scapegoat? Evelyn, her composure faltering, spoke up. "Monsieur Poirot, that locket was a gift I gave Clara months ago as a token of friendship. I had no idea she kept it." Her voice was steady, but her eyes darted to Clara, a flicker of unease. Poirot leaned closer. "Mademoiselle Marsh, you gave a locket with your aunt's photograph. A curious choice, non?" Evelyn's fingers tightened around her own locket. "It was Aunt Beatrice's idea. She wanted Clara to feel valued." Poirot's eyes narrowed. A gift orchestrated by Beatrice, or a convenient lie? Evelyn's inheritance loomed large, but her calm demeanour suggested control, or calculation. Dr. Crane, sensing the shift, cleared his throat. "This is irrelevant, Poirot. Beatrice's death was a heart attack, as I've said. The locket proves nothing." Poirot's smile was thin. "Monsieur le Docteur, the vial of foxglove extract disagrees. Your notes on its properties are most specific. Did you know of Mademoiselle Henshaw's feelings?" Crane's face flushed. "I knew nothing of her personal life. My concern was Beatrice's health." His denial was firm, but Poirot noted the sweat on his brow, the tremor in his hands. Crane's expertise made him a candidate, but his agitation hinted at fear or complicity. Sir Reginald, his cigarette burned to ash, spoke hoarsely. "Poirot, if Clara loved Beatrice, why kill her? It makes no sense." His grief seemed genuine, but Poirot pressed. "Monsieur Langley, your wife's will, altered recently, threatened your fortune. Did you know of her affair with Mademoiselle Henshaw?" Reginald's eyes widened. "An affair? No, I knew she was distant, but I thought it was the estate's burdens." His shock appeared real, but Poirot sensed a man clinging to denial, or crafting it. Lord Grey, ever the provocateur, interjected. "A lover's quarrel, Poirot. Clara's the obvious culprit. She had access, knowledge, and now a motive." His tone was light, but his eyes were cold. Poirot's gaze sharpened. "Lord Grey, you deflect with ease. Your rivalry with Madame Langley's family cost you dearly. Did you seek revenge?" Grey chuckled. "I fight with contracts, not poison. Clara's the one with dirty hands." Poirot noted his deflection, a tactic to shift blame. To test his hypothesis, Poirot returned to the dining hall, where the decanter and Beatrice's shattered glass rested under Hawkins's guard. He sent for the butler, who confirmed the wine was untouched before Clara poured it. "But, sir," Hawkins added, "I saw Dr. Crane near the glasses earlier, checking them for cleanliness." Poirot's eyes gleamed. Crane's presence near the glasses was new, a detail that tightened the web. He examined the decanter's residue again, confirming it matched the vial's foxglove extract. The poison he deduced was added to Beatrice's glass alone, a precise act requiring opportunity and intent. Poirot summoned Clara for a private word in the drawing-room, its velvet drapes casting long shadows. "Mademoiselle," he said softly, "your love for Madame Langley, it was deep, oui? Did it turn to hate when she rejected you?" Clara's tears fell freely. "Never, sir. I was heartbroken, but I'd never harm her. She was everything to me." Her sincerity struck Poirot, but her access to the greenhouse and her herbal knowledge kept her in the frame. "And the locket," he pressed. "How did it come to your room?" Clara shook her head. "I don't know, sir. Someone must have placed it there." "A set-up," Poirot mused, "or a desperate lie?" He questioned Evelyn next, her locket a mirror to the one found. "Mademoiselle Marsh, your gift to Clara suggests a bond. Did you know of her feelings for your aunt?" Evelyn's eyes flickered. "I suspected, but Aunt Beatrice never confirmed it. I gave the locket to cheer Clara. She seemed so sad." Her words were smooth, but Poirot sensed a calculated edge. Was Evelyn protecting Clara, or distancing herself? Dr. Crane, confronted in the library, grew defensive. "Monsieur Poirot, I handled the glasses to ensure they were clean, nothing more. My notes on foxglove are academic." Poirot's smile was unyielding. "And yet, monsieur, your expertise aligns perfectly with the crime. Did Madame Langley's refusal of your treatments anger you?" Crane's face reddened. "She was stubborn, yes, but I'd never kill her." His agitation was telling, but Poirot needed more. Reginald, questioned again, admitted to forging the will post-mortem, a desperate act to secure his future. "I panicked, Poirot. I'm ruined without her fortune." His confession cleared one thread but deepened his motive. Lord Grey, when pressed, offered no new insights, his alibi holding but his smirk grating. "I'm no gardener, Poirot. Look to Clara's herbs." His deflection was tiresome, but Poirot noted his calm. Too calm, perhaps. Poirot returned to the greenhouse, its humid air thick with the scent of foxglove. He examined the plants, noting freshly cut leaves, evidence of recent harvesting. The vial, the locket, Clara's journal, all pointed to her, yet the precision of the poisoning suggested a colder hand. He tested the decanter's residue again, confirming foxglove, not cyanide, as the almond scent had misled. The garden, he realized, was the heart of the crime, its flora, the weapon, its shadows, the stage. As night fell, Poirot stood in the dining hall, the crimson stain a grim reminder. The locket's discovery suggested a frame, but by whom? Clara's love, Reginald's debts, Crane's expertise, Evelyn's inheritance, Grey's rivalry, each motive intertwined, each suspect a piece of the puzzle. The torn note, "Trust no one," echoed Beatrice's fear. Had she known her killer's heart? Chapter 7. The Doctor's Deception. The Garnet Garden estate, cloaked in the deepening shadows of a 1920s night, stood as a silent sentinel over its secrets. Its ivy-clad walls and sprawling gardens whispering of betrayal. The greenhouse, its glass panes reflecting the moon's pale glow, loomed large in Hercule Poirot's mind as he processed the servant's startling revelation. Dr. Victor Crane had been seen cutting leaves in the greenhouse before Lady Beatrice Langley's fatal dinner. The vial of foxglove extract, the locket in Clara's quarters, the torn note, and the crimson stain of poisoned wine formed a constellation of clues, each pointing to a calculated murder. Poirot's little grey cells churned, weaving the threads of motive, opportunity, and deception into a tapestry that grew clearer with each revelation. The doctor's presence in the greenhouse, coupled with his medical expertise, cast a long shadow over his denials, but Poirot knew the truth required precision to uncover. In the Manor's library, where lamplight flickered over leather-bound volumes, Poirot gathered the suspects, their faces etched with fatigue and fear. Sir Reginald Langley, his cigarette long extinguished, sat slumped, his eyes hollow with grief or guilt. Clara Henshaw, her hands trembling, stood near a window, her dark eyes reflecting the night beyond. Dr. Victor Crane, his spectacles glinting, clutched his medical bag like a shield, his gaunt face slick with perspiration. Evelyn Marsh, her silver locket gleaming, maintained her serene facade, though her fingers twitched nervously. Lord Percival Grey, his hawkish features sharp, leaned against a bookshelf, his usual smirk replaced by a guarded expression. Poirot's voice, calm yet commanding, cut through the tension. "Mes amis," he said, "a new truth emerges. Monsieur le Dr. Crane, you were seen in the greenhouse before the dinner, cutting leaves, foxglove perhaps. Explain yourself." Crane's face paled, his voice rising in protest. "Preposterous, Poirot! I was nowhere near the greenhouse that evening. Whoever claims to have seen me is mistaken." His denial was vehement, but Poirot noted the tremor in his hands, the sweat beading on his brow. "Monsieur," Poirot replied, his tone a velvet blade, "a servant is certain. You were there, in the dark, with the plants, that yielded the poison that killed Madame Langley. Your expertise in toxicology. It is most convenient, non?" Crane's spectacles slipped, his composure fraying. I was gathering herbs for my research, nothing more. I often studied Beatrice's garden for medicinal properties." Poirot's moustache twitched. Research or preparation for murder? He turned to the servant, a young footman named James, who stood nervously by the door. "Monsieur James, recount what you saw." James swallowed, his voice unsteady. "It was before the dinner, sir, around dusk. I was fetching tools from the shed when I saw Dr. Crane in the greenhouse, snipping leaves from the foxglove. He looked secretive, like he didn't want to be seen." Poirot's eyes gleamed. The testimony was damning, but he needed more to pierce Crane's defences. "And you are certain it was Monsieur le Docteur?" James nodded vigorously. "Yes, sir." His spectacles caught the light. Poirot filed this away, the image of Crane in the greenhouse sharpening the puzzle's edges. Clara, her tears barely contained, spoke up. "Monsieur Poirot, if Dr. Crane was there, he could have taken the foxglove. I never touched it, I swear." Her voice trembled, her fear palpable. Poirot's gaze softened, but his mind remained sharp. "Mademoiselle Henshaw, your presence in the greenhouse after midnight is noted, but let us explore all threads. Did you see Monsieur le Docteur that evening?" Clara shook her head. "No, sir. I was in the kitchen until the dinner began." Her denial was swift, but Poirot noted her glance at Crane, a flicker of fear, or something deeper. Sir Reginald, his voice hoarse, interjected. "Poirot, if Crane was meddling with poisons, he's your man. Beatrice trusted him, and he betrayed her." His anger seemed genuine, but Poirot pressed. "Monsieur Langley, your wife's death secures your fortune, oui? The forged will, it was a desperate act, was it not?" Reginald's face crumpled. "I forged it after she died, Poirot. I was ruined, but I didn't kill her. I loved her." His grief was convincing, but Poirot sensed a man teetering on the edge of truth and deception. Evelyn, her locket clutched tightly, spoke softly. "Monsieur Poirot, Dr. Crane was furious when Aunt Beatrice refused his experimental treatments. He said they'd save her heart, but she called them dangerous." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "Mademoiselle Marsh, you suggest a professional grudge. Did you witness this?" Evelyn nodded. "I overheard them in the drawing room. Days before the dinner, he was obsessive." Crane's face reddened. "Lies! I only wanted to help her." His outburst drew Poirot's attention, the doctor's composure unravelling like a frayed thread. Lord Grey, sensing an opportunity, leaned forward. "Poirot, Crane's the one with the means, his bag, his knowledge. Why look elsewhere?" His tone was casual, but his eyes were cold. Poirot's smile was thin. "Lord Grey, your eagerness to point fingers is noted. Your rivalry with Madame Langley cost you much. Did you seek to settle the score?" Grey chuckled, unperturbed. "I fight with ledgers, not leaves. Crane's your poisoner." Poirot noted the deflection, a tactic to shift suspicion. To test his hypothesis, Poirot returned to the dining hall, where the decanter and Beatrice's shattered glass remained under Hawkins' watch. He examined the glasses again, noting the powdery residue on Beatrice's, a trace of foxglove, not cyanide, as the almond scent had misled. The second glass, found in the pantry, bore no residue, suggesting it was a diversion or a mistake. "Monsieur Hawkins," Poirot said, "who handled the glasses before the toast?" The butler frowned. "Miss Clara set them out, but Dr. Crane inspected them, saying it was for hygiene." Poirot's eyes gleamed. Crane's access to the glasses, combined with his greenhouse visit, tightened the noose. Poirot summoned Crane to the drawing-room for a private word. The doctor's gaunt face was slick with sweat, his hands clutching his bag. "Monsieur le Docteur," Poirot said, "your presence in the greenhouse, your notes on foxglove, your access to the glasses, these are no coincidence. Did you poison Madame Langley?" Crane's voice rose, almost shrill. "I swear, Poirot, I only studied the plants. Beatrice refused my treatments, yes, but I'd never harm her." His denial was fierce, but Poirot noted the desperation in his eyes. "And yet," Poirot said, "your expertise aligns perfectly with the crime. The foxglove, it was cut with precision, no?" Crane stammered. I cut leaves for study, not for poison." Poirot's gaze was unrelenting, sensing a crack in the doctor's armour. Returning to the library, Poirot questioned Clara again. Her journal, with its cryptic entry, "She knows she'll never forgive me," hinted at a deeper motive. "Mademoiselle," he said softly, "your love for Madame Langley, it was a wound, oui? Did it drive you to act?" Clara's tears spilled. "No, sir. I was heartbroken, but I'd never hurt her. The locket, someone put it in my room to make me look guilty." Her plea was heartfelt, but Poirot's mind churned. A frame, perhaps, but by whom? Evelyn, questioned next, remained composed. "Monsieur Poirot, I knew of Clara's feelings, but I never thought she'd kill. Dr. Crane's obsession with his treatments, though, that was real." Her words were measured, but Poirot noted her glance at Crane, a subtle accusation. Reginald, confronted again, admitted to his debts but swore his love for Beatrice. "I forged the will in panic, Poirot. I'm no murderer." His desperation was palpable, but Poirot sensed a red herring. Lord Grey, when pressed, offered little. "I'm no botanist, Poirot. Crane's your man. His hands are dirty." His deflection was tiresome, but Poirot noted his calm, a contrast to Crane's agitation. The detective returned to the greenhouse, its humid air thick with the scent of foxglove. The cut leaves, freshly harvested, confirmed recent activity. Crane's presence, Clara's journal, the locket, all pointed to a complex plot, but the poison's precision suggested a mastermind beyond a scorned maid. As midnight approached, Poirot stood in the dining hall, the crimson stain a grim reminder. He reconstructed the evening. Clara poured the wine. Crane handled the glasses. Reginald proposed the toast. Evelyn and Gray lingered nearby. The poison required knowledge and opportunity, ruling out impulsiveness. Crane's greenhouse visit, his toxicology notes, his access to the glasses, all aligned, but Clara's locket and journal muddied the waters. Was she a pawn or a partner? Chapter 8. The Needle's Truth. The Garnet Garden estate, cloaked in the heavy stillness of a 1920s midnight, seemed to pulse with the weight of its secrets. Its ivy-draped walls and moonlit gardens guarding the truth of Lady Beatrice Langley's murder. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and fading blooms, a reminder of the deadly foxglove that had claimed her life. Hercule Poirot stood in the library, the flickering lamplight casting long shadows across the leather-bound volumes ado. The servant's discovery, a syringe hidden in Dr. Victor Crane's study, its needle bearing traces of a clear liquid, had sharpened the mystery's edges. The vial of foxglove extract, the locket in Clara's quarters, the torn note, and the crimson stain of poisoned wine all pointed to a calculated act. But the syringe was a new piece in the puzzle, one that threatened to unravel Dr. Crane's carefully constructed denials. Poirot's little grey cells thrummed, each clue a note in a symphony of deception he was determined to resolve. The suspects, summoned once more to the dining hall, stood under the dim glow of the chandeliers, their faces etched with exhaustion and dread. Sir Reginald Langley, his hands unsteady, clutched a glass of brandy, his grief now tinged with resignation. Clara Henshaw, her eyes red from crying, hovered near the sideboard, her apron twisted into knots. Dr. Victor Crane, his spectacles slipping, gripped his medical bag, his gaunt face slick with perspiration. Evelyn Marsh, her silver locket gleaming against her dark dress, maintained her serene facade, though her fingers betrayed a nervous twitch. Lord Percival Grey, his hawkish features sharp, leaned against a chair, his usual smirk replaced by a wary stillness. Poirot held the syringe aloft, its glint a silent accusation. "Mes amis," he said, his voice a velvet blade, "this syringe, found in Monsieur le Docteur Crane's study, contains traces of foxglove extract, the same poison that felled Madame Langley. The truth, it draws near. Who will speak?" Crane's face drained of colour, his voice rising in a panicked protest. "This is outrageous! Poirot! That syringe is for my research, nothing more. I've never used it on a patient, let alone to poison Beatrice." His hands trembled, his spectacles fogging with sweat. Poirot's gaze was unrelenting. "Monsieur le Docteur, your presence in the greenhouse, your notes on foxglove, your access to the glasses, and now this syringe, they align too perfectly. Did you harbour a grudge against Madame Langley for refusing your treatments?" Crane's voice cracked. "I was trying to save her, not kill her. She was stubborn, yes, but I'd never—" His words trailed off, his composure crumbling. Poirot noted the desperation in his eyes, a sign of fear or guilt. Clara, her tears spilling anew, spoke up. "Monsieur Poirot, if Dr. Crane had the syringe, he's the one. I never touched the foxglove, I swear." Her voice was raw, her fear palpable. Poirot turned to her, his tone soft but probing. "Mademoiselle Henshaw, your journal speaks of a love betrayed, a locket placed in your room to incriminate you. Did you know of Monsieur le Docteur's activities?" Clara shook her head vigorously. "No, sir. I only went to the greenhouse to tend the roses, as I said, but I heard him once, arguing with her ladyship about his treatments. He was angry." Poirot's moustache twitched, her testimony tightening the web around Crane. He summoned the servant who found the syringe, a young maid named Lily, who stood nervously by the door. "Mademoiselle Lily, describe your discovery," Poirot said. Lily twisted her hands, her voice trembling. "I was cleaning Dr. Crane's study, sir, after you asked us to search. The syringe was in a locked drawer, hidden under papers. It had a drop of liquid inside, clear like water." Poirot's eyes gleamed. A locked drawer suggested intent to conceal, but was it Crane's doing, or a frame? "And you are certain it was his study?" he pressed. Lily nodded. "Yes, sir. His medical books were all around." Poirot filed this away, the syringe's presence a damning clue. Sir Reginald, his brandy glass empty, spoke hoarsely. "Poirot, if Crane had the syringe, he's your poisoner. Beatrice trusted him, and he betrayed her." His anger seemed genuine, but Poirot pressed. "Monsieur Langley, your forged will was a desperate act. Did you conspire with Monsieur le Docteur to secure your fortune?" Reginald's face crumpled. "I forged it after her death, Poirot. In a panic. I'm ruined, but I didn't kill her." His confession cleared one thread but deepened his motive. A tangled knot in Poirot's mind. Evelyn, her locket clutched tightly, interjected, "Monsieur Poirot, Dr. Crane's obsession with his treatments was no secret. Aunt Beatrice called them dangerous, said he was reckless. He could have poisoned her out of spite." Her voice was steady, but her eyes flickered to Crane, a subtle accusation. Poirot leaned closer. "Mademoiselle Marsh, you point to Monsieur le Docteur, yet your locket's twin was found in Mademoiselle Henshaw's room. Was it truly a gift, or a ploy to shift blame?" Evelyn's composure wavered. "It was a gift, as I said. I had no reason to harm my aunt." Poirot noted her calm, a mask that could hide calculation. Lord Grey, sensing an opportunity, leaned forward. "Poirot, Crane's the obvious culprit. Syringe, foxglove, motive. Why look elsewhere?" His tone was light, but his eyes were cold. Poirot's smile was thin. "Lord Grey, your eagerness to accuse is noted. Your rivalry with Madame Langley's family cost you dearly. Did you plant the syringe to deflect suspicion?" Grey chuckled, unperturbed. "I'm no chemist, Poirot. Crane's the one with the tools." His deflection was clever, but Poirot sensed a calculated edge. To test his hypothesis, Poirot returned to the dining hall, where the decanter and Beatrice's shattered glass remained under Hawkins's guard. He examined the syringe, confirming its contents matched the vial's foxglove extract. The poison, he deduced, was injected into Beatrice's glass, a precise act requiring medical skill. Crane's access to the glasses, his greenhouse visit, and now the syringe formed a compelling chain. But Clara's journal and locket suggested a broader plot. Poirot summoned Hawkins, who confirmed Crane's presence near the glasses before the toast. "He said it was for hygiene, sir, but he lingered," Hawkins said. Poirot's eyes narrowed, the doctor's actions aligning too neatly with the crime. In a private word with Clara, Poirot probed deeper. "Mademoiselle, your journal speaks of betrayal. Did Monsieur le Docteur know of your love for Madame Langley?" Clara's tears fell freely. He found out, sir. He threatened to tell everyone unless I helped him with the plants. He said it was for medicine, but I didn't trust him." Her confession was a bombshell. suggesting coercion. Poirot's mind raced. Had Crane used Clara's vulnerability to harvest the foxglove, framing her for the murder? He confronted Crane in the drawing-room, the syringe on the table between them. "Monsieur le Docteur, Mademoiselle Henshaw claims you coerced her, using her secret to secure her aid. Is this true?" Crane's face reddened, his voice shrill. "Lies! I never threatened her. My research was legitimate." His panic was telling, but Poirot needed more. "The syringe, monsieur, was hidden in your study. Why conceal an innocent tool?" Crane stammered. I didn't want it misused. It was for experiments." His excuses faltered, his composure unravelling. Poirot questioned Reginald again, probing the forged will. "Monsieur Langley, your act was desperate, but was it planned with another?" Reginald shook his head. "No, Poirot. I acted alone after her death. I'm no murderer." His sincerity was convincing, but Poirot noted his financial motive, a shadow that lingered. Evelyn, when pressed, reiterated her innocence. "I loved my aunt, Monsieur Poirot. The locket was a gift, nothing more." Her calm was unnerving, but Poirot sensed no direct link to the syringe. Lord Grey, questioned last, offered little. "Crane's your man, Poirot. The syringe seals it." His deflection was tiresome, but his calm suggested distance from the crime. Poirot returned to the greenhouse, its humid air thick with the scent of foxglove. The cut leaves, the vial, the syringe, all pointed to Crane, but Clara's coerced role muddied the waters. The locket, likely planted, suggested a frame, but by whom? Poirot reconstructed the evening. Clara poured the wine, Crane handled the glasses, Reginald proposed the toast, Evelyn and Grey lingered nearby. The poison's precision required medical skill, pointing to Crane, but Clara's vulnerability made her a perfect scapegoat. As dawn approached, Poirot stood in the dining hall, the crimson stain a grim reminder. The syringe, he knew, was no accident. Someone had orchestrated this plot, using Crane's expertise and Clara's secret. The torn note, "Trust no one," echoed Beatrice's fear. Had she suspected Crane's betrayal? Chapter 9. The Fugitive's Trail. The Garnet Garden estate, shrouded in the pre-dawn mist of a 1920s English morning, seemed to hold its breath, its ivy-clad walls and shadowed gardens concealing the truth of Lady Beatrice Langley's murder. The servant's cry, Clara Henshaw's sudden disappearance from the estate, echoed in Hercule Poirot's mind like a discordant note in a symphony. The syringe found in Dr. Victor Crane's study, the vial of foxglove extract, the locket planted in Clara's quarters, and the torn note in Beatrice's hand formed a complex web of deception, each clue tightening the noose around the suspects. Clara's flight suggested guilt, yet Poirot's little grey cells hummed with doubt. Her vulnerability, her coerced role in harvesting foxglove, and the planted locket hinted at a frame. The truth, he knew, lay just beyond the mist, and he would pursue it with relentless precision. Poirot stood in the dining hall, where the crimson stain of Beatrice's poisoned wine lingered on the mahogany, a grim reminder of the crime. The suspects, summoned despite the hour, gathered under the dim chandeliers, their faces pale with exhaustion and fear. Sir Reginald Langley, his brandy glass long abandoned, sat with his head in his hands, his grief now mingled with resignation. Dr. Victor Crane, his spectacles fogged with sweat, clutched his medical bag, his gaunt features taut with panic. Evelyn Marsh, her silver locket gleaming, maintained her serene facade, though her eyes betrayed a flicker of unease. Lord Percival Grey, his hawkish features sharp, leaned against a chair, his wary stillness unbroken. Poirot's voice, calm yet commanding, cut through the silence. Mes amis, Mademoiselle Henshaw has fled. This act it screams of guilt, yet I, Poirot, sense a deeper truth. Who among you knows where she has gone? Crane, his voice shrill, seized the moment. She's guilty, Poirot. She harvested the foxglove. Her journal proves her motive, and now she runs. The case is clear. His outburst was fervent, but Poirot noted the desperation in his eyes. A man deflecting scrutiny. Monsieur le Docteur, Poirot replied, his tone a velvet blade. Your eagerness to condemn Mademoiselle Henshaw is noted. Yet the syringe in your study, your presence in the greenhouse, your knowledge of foxglove, these point to you. Did you drive her to flee? Crane's face reddened. I did no such thing. My research is innocent. His denial faltered, his composure crumbling under Poirot's gaze. Evelyn, her fingers tightening around her locket, spoke softly. Monsieur Poirot, Clara's disappearance is suspicious, but Dr. Crane's obsession with his treatments was dangerous. Aunt Beatrice feared him. Her voice was steady, but Poirot sensed a calculated edge. Mademoiselle Marsh, he said, the locket in Clara's room, a twin to yours, suggests a frame. Did you place it there to shift blame? Evelyn's eyes widened, her calm cracking. I gave her the locket as a gift, as I said. I'd never frame her. Her protest was convincing, but Poirot noted her glance at Crane. A subtle accusation, or a diversion? Sir Reginald, his voice hoarse, interjected. Poirot, if Clara's gone, she's the killer. I loved Beatrice. I'd never... His words trailed off, his grief raw. Poirot pressed. Monsieur Langley, your forged will was a desperate act. Did you conspire with another to secure your fortune? Reginald shook his head. I acted alone after her death. I'm no murderer. His sincerity was palpable, but Poirot's mind churned. His financial motive lingered like a shadow. Lord Grey, his smirk faint, leaned forward. Poirot! Clara's flight seals her guilt. Crane's syringe is damning, but she had the means and motive. His tone was light, but his eyes were cold. Poirot's smile was thin. Lord Grey, your rivalry with Madame Langley's family is no secret. Did you plant evidence to deflect suspicion? Grey chuckled. I'm no gardener, Poirot. Clara's the one who ran. His deflection was clever, but Poirot sensed a calculated distance. Determined to find Clara, Poirot enlisted Hawkins, the butler, to organize a search. Monsieur Hawkins, check the estate grounds and the nearby village. Mademoiselle Henshaw cannot have gone far. Hawkins nodded, dispatching servants to comb the gardens and stables. Poirot, meanwhile, returned to Clara's quarters, searching for clues to her flight. The journal, with its cryptic entry, "She knows, she'll never forgive me," lay open, but a new detail caught his eye. A torn page, its edges jagged, hinting at a missing entry. Had Clara removed it, or someone else? The locket still in his pocket felt heavier, its presence a puzzle, within a puzzle. By dawn, a servant returned with news. Clara had been spotted in a nearby village, hiding in a barn. Poirot, accompanied by Hawkins, set out, the misty lanes of the countryside stretching before them. The barn, weathered and creaking, stood at the village's edge. Its hay-strewn floor a refuge for the fugitive. Clara sat huddled in a corner, her face streaked with tears, her dark hair loose. "Mademoiselle Henshaw," Poirot said softly, "why did you flee?" Clara's voice trembled. "I was scared, sir. They'll think I did it, the locket, the journal, the foxglove, but I didn't. Dr. Crane made me cut the leaves, said it was for medicine. I didn't know." Her words spilled out, a mix of fear and desperation. Poirot's gaze softened, but his mind was sharp. "Mademoiselle, You claim coercion. What did Monsieur le Docteur demand?" Clara's tears fell freely. "He knew about me and her ladyship. He said he'd tell everyone unless I helped him. He gave me the vial, told me to keep it safe. I thought it was harmless." Poirot's moustache twitched. Crane's manipulation, if true, was a masterstroke, using Clara's secret to secure her compliance. "And the locket?" he pressed. Clara shook her head. "I never had it, sir. Someone put it in my room." Her sincerity was compelling, but Poirot needed proof. He escorted Clara back to the estate, her hands trembling as they entered the dining hall. The suspects still gathered gasped at her return. Crane's face paled, his voice rising. "She's the poisoner, Poirot! Her flight proves it!" Poirot raised a hand, silencing him. "Monsieur le Docteur, Mademoiselle Henshaw claims you coerced her, using her secret to harvest foxglove. What say you?" Crane's spectacles slipped, his voice shrill. "Lies! I never threatened her. My research was legitimate." His panic was telling, but Poirot's mind churned. Clara's story fit, but the locket and syringe suggested a broader plot. Poirot returned to the decanter, examining its neck. The smudge, a partial fingerprint, was faint but present. He requested Clara's gloves from her quarters, comparing them to the mark. The smudge matched the glove's texture, not her hand, a subtle but critical detail. "Mademoiselle," he said, "this fingerprint is from your glove, not your skin. Someone used it to frame you." Clara's eyes widened. "I knew it, sir. I never touched the decanter." Poirot's gaze shifted to Crane, whose face was ashen. The glove, the locket, the syringe, all pointed to a setup, with Crane at the centre. He confronted Evelyn next. "Mademoiselle Marsh, the locket in Clara's room, was it truly a gift or a calculated act?" Evelyn's calm cracked. "It was a gift, as I said. I didn't frame her." Her protest was fervent, but Poirot noted her glance at Crane, a silent accusation. Reginald questioned again, reiterated his innocence. "I forged the will, Poirot, but I didn't kill her. Crane's the one with the syringe." His desperation was palpable, but Poirot sensed no direct link to the poison. Lord Grey, when pressed, offered little. "Clara's back, Poirot, but Crane's your man. The syringe, the foxglove, it's all him." His deflection was tiresome, but his calm suggested distance from the crime. Poirot returned to the greenhouse, its humid air thick with the scent of foxglove. The cut leaves, the vial, the syringe, all aligned with Crane, but Clara's coerced role and the planted locket suggested a mastermind. He re-examined the decanter's fingerprint, confirming the glove's mark. The poison, he deduced, was injected into Beatrice's glass, a precise act requiring medical skill. As morning broke, Poirot stood in the dining hall, the crimson stain a grim reminder. Clara's flight, Crane's syringe, the planted locket, all pointed to a frame, but the motive remained elusive. The torn note, "Trust no one," echoed Beatrice's fear. Had she suspected Crane's betrayal, or another's? Poirot's mind raced, the final piece within reach. He summoned the suspects, his denouement near. Chapter 10. The Garnet Revelation. The Garnet Garden estate, bathed in the sombre glow of a 1920s evening, stood as a silent witness to the final act of Lady Beatrice Langley's tragedy. The dining hall, its chandeliers casting flickering shadows over the mahogany table, was a stage set for revelation. The crimson stain of Beatrice's poisoned wine, now a darkened scar, whispered of the crime that had shattered the estate's opulence. Hercule Poirot, his small frame commanding despite the tension, stood at the head of the table, his grey eyes piercing the gathered suspects. The vial of foxglove extract, the syringe in Dr. Crane's study, the locket in Clara's quarters, the torn note, and Clara's desperate flight had woven a tapestry of deception, each thread meticulously unravelled by Poirot's little grey cells. Tonight, the truth would be laid bare. The killer unmasked in a denouement worthy of the crime's complexity. The suspects sat in uneasy silence, their faces a gallery of dread and anticipation. Sir Reginald Langley, his hands trembling, stared at the table, his grief or guilt etched in every line. Clara Henshaw, returned from her flight, stood by the sideboard, her eyes red-rimmed, her apron discarded. Dr. Victor Crane, his spectacles fogged with sweat, clutched his medical bag, his gaunt face pale with fear. Evelyn Marsh, her silver locket gleaming, maintained her serene facade, though her fingers twitched nervously. Lord Percival Grey, his hawkish features sharp, leaned back in his chair, his wary stillness unbroken. Poirot's voice, calm yet resonant, cut through the silence like a blade. "Mes amis," he said, "the murder of Madame Langley was a masterpiece of deception. But the truth, it cannot hide from Hercule Poirot. Tonight, we uncover the killer." He began with the crime's heart, the poison. "The wine," Poirot said, gesturing to the decanter, "was laced with foxglove extract, injected into Madame Langley's glass alone. The almond-like scent, the powdery residue, the vial found in the garden, all confirm this. The poison required precision, knowledge, and opportunity." He paused, his gaze sweeping the room. "Each of you had motive, but only one had the means and the cunning to execute this act." Poirot turned to Clara, her tears barely contained. "Mademoiselle Henshaw, your love for Madame Langley was a secret she threatened to expose. Your journal speaks of betrayal. Your knowledge of herbs gave you means, and your presence in the greenhouse after midnight suggested guilt. Your flight, it screamed of culpability. Yet I, Poirot, see more." Clara's voice trembled. "I didn't kill her, sir. I loved her." Poirot nodded, his tone softening. "Oui, mademoiselle, your tears are genuine, but you were coerced, were you not?" Clara nodded, her voice breaking. "Dr. Crane, he knew about us. He made me cut the foxglove, said it was for medicine." Poirot's gaze shifted to Crane, whose face was ashen. "Monsieur le Docteur, your expertise in toxicology, your presence in the greenhouse, the syringe in your study, these are damning. You claim research, but your notes on foxglove are too precise. Did you poison Madame Langley?" Crane's voice rose, shrill with panic. "No, Poirot! I studied the plants, yes, but I'd never kill her. The syringe was for experiments." His hands shook, his spectacles slipping. Poirot's smile was thin. "Your denials falter, monsieur. You handled the glasses before the toast, oui? And you were seen cutting foxglove." He turned to Reginald, whose grief seemed to weigh him down. "Monsieur Langley, your debts made Madame Langley's fortune your lifeline. The forged will, a desperate act, suggests you knew of her plans to alter it. Did you act to secure your future?" Reginald's voice cracked. "I forged it after she died, Poirot. I was ruined, but I loved her." His sincerity was compelling, but Poirot noted his desperation. A motive, if not a method. Evelyn, her locket clutched tightly, spoke softly. "Monsieur Poirot, I had no reason to harm my aunt. The locket in Clara's room was a gift, nothing more." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "Mademoiselle Marsh, your inheritance was significant, and your calm is most curious. Did you plant the locket to frame Mademoiselle Henshaw?" Evelyn's composure cracked. "No, I gave it to her months ago." Her protest was fervent, but Poirot sensed a flicker of calculation. Lord Grey, his smirk faint, leaned forward. "Poirot, Crane's your man. Syringe, foxglove, motive. Clara's flight only confirms it." Poirot's gaze sharpened. "Lord Grey, Your rivalry with Madame Langley's family cost you dearly. Did you orchestrate a frame to deflect suspicion? Gray chuckled. I'm no poisoner, Poirot. Crane's the one with the tools. His deflection was clever, but Poirot sensed distance from the crime. Poirot paced slowly, his polished shoes clicking on the parquet. Let us reconstruct the evening, he said. The wine was poured by Mademoiselle Henshaw, the glasses handled by Monsieur le Docteur, the toast proposed by Monsieur Langley. Mademoiselle Marsh and Lord Grey lingered near the sideboard. The poison, injected with a syringe, required medical precision. The locket, planted in Mademoiselle Henshaw's room, was a frame, as was the glove's fingerprint on the decanter. He paused, his gaze piercing Crane. Monsieur le Docteur, you coerced Mademoiselle Henshaw to harvest foxglove, using her secret love. You injected the poison, knowing it would mimic a heart attack. You planted the locket and glove to frame her. Crane's face crumpled, his voice a whisper. No, it's not true. But his eyes betrayed him, darting to the door. Poirot continued, relentless. Madame Langley refused your experimental treatments, humiliated you. Your pride, it was wounded, no? You saw an opportunity, use Mademoiselle Henshaw's vulnerability, frame her for the crime. The syringe, hidden in your study, was your mistake. Crane collapsed into a chair, his head in his hands. I only wanted to prove my work. She wouldn't listen. I didn't mean his confession faltered, but Poirot needed no more. He turned to Clara, his voice gentle. Mademoiselle, you were a pawn, manipulated by Monsieur le Docteur. Your love was your weakness, but not your crime. Clara sobbed, her relief palpable. Poirot addressed Reginald. Monsieur Langley, your forgery was foolish, but not murderous. Reginald nodded, tears in his eyes. To Evelyn, he said, Mademoiselle Marsh, your inheritance was a motive, but your locket was merely a tool in another scheme. Evelyn exhaled, her calm returning. To Grey he added, Lord Grey, your rivalry was irrelevant, a distraction. Poirot's voice rose, commanding the room. The truth, it is this. Monsieur le Docteur Crane, humiliated by Madame Langley's rejection, distilled foxglove extract, injected it into her glass, and framed Mademoiselle Henshaw with the locket and glove. The almond scent, the syringe, the greenhouse visit, all betray you. Crane's shoulders slumped, his silence a confession. Poirot summoned Hawkins. Monsieur, call the authorities. Justice must be served. As the guests dispersed, Crane was led away, his face a mask of defeat. Clara, pardoned, wept quietly, her heart heavy with loss. Reginald, his fortune lost, faced ruin, but clung to his love for Beatrice. Evelyn, her inheritance secure, retreated in silence. Grey, his smirk restored, left with a nod. Poirot stood alone, the crimson stain a fading echo. The Garnet Garden, its beauty marred by betrayal, mourned its lady, but justice had prevailed. The estate's gardens, bathed in moonlight, seemed to sigh, their secrets laid bare. The foxglove, once a weapon, stood silent, its purple bells drooping. Poirot's moustache twitched, a final note of satisfaction. Mon ami, he murmured, the little grey cells, they never fail. He stepped into the night, the truth a beacon in the darkness, the mystery of the Garnet Garden resolved. Resolution. Dr. Crane was arrested, Clara pardoned, and the estate mourned its lady, its shadows lingering as a reminder of the poison's whisper.